First of all, it's so hard to talk to you and not seeing you, hoping you're all well. And I want to thank Rabbi Chaim Rosenfeld once again coming home to my house to making sure this works. The Baruch Hashem should help all the Chayli Yisrael and all of Klal Yisrael have the Yeshua food that we need so desperately. But for us, we have to cling to our Torah HaKadoshah. And I want to discuss an inyan that is definitely Dava Be'itei Ma'toiv. As we know, there's no other night like the Leil Seder. That's so much kaiches, so much time, so much effort, so much money goes into making a Leil Seder. There are so many mitzvahs regarding this evening. There are so many minhagim. The Vudraham says, Bavur zeh is Gematria 12. There are 12 mitzvahs on the Pesach night. It's quoted B'Shem the Goyin. There are 64 different parts to the Seder. The Malbim said, perhaps in jest, but he said, Asara kavim Torah yard l'olam. There are 10 groups or levels or amounts of Torah went down to the world. Tisha notla Hagadah. Of course, a play of words on the famous Chazal. But there's so much Torah about the Leil Seder. And today we're going to learn, Be'ez Hashem, what I consider a sugya in Nishtana halayla hazeh. As we'll see, there are many differences between the Leil Seder and the rest of the year. Today we're going to focus on the very end of the Seder, the concluding parts of the Seder, whether it's benching or Hallel, and we'll discuss the Halachos l'maisa, and we'll see something very unusual, that indeed Nishtana halayla hazeh. You're probably wondering, if it's benching, what's the difference benching on Pesach than the whole year? What's the difference Hallel? But that's the beauty of our Torah. There is so much to talk about, every nuance that we do. And as our derech always is, before Yom Tov, we like to give the Olam Geshmaka Sugya, something that Tein L'chacham V'yech Kamoid. So we'll say a number of points, and each one could be elaborated and developed and broadened. So Tein L'chacham V'yech Kamoid. As we mentioned, you're probably wondering, what's the whole share about benching and Hallel? We bench all throughout the year, we say Hallel quite often, but sit back and enjoy and let's begin. First of all, when we're about to bench, do you have to rinse the kais? You use the kais before the Suda, and now we're about to bench. Does that kais have to be rinsed? So to make a long story short, in Kuf Pei Gimel Sif Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says that a kaishel bracha, which of course is benching or kiddush, has to be rinsed. But if it's clean and there's no shiurei kais, which the Mishnah explains, there's no food residue, you don't have to rinse the kais. What that means on a practical level is, if you take the kais out of the break front to make kiddush Friday night, you don't have to rinse it. If you made kiddush on a kais and someone wants to use it afterwards, he also doesn't have to rinse it. All you have left is the wine. Wine is not food. Okay, today especially we're worried about germs, so we rinse it out. Or we're worrying about pogum, so you want to add more wine. Or you could hold like the shitas that the fact is that wine is not pogum in the kais. But basically, a kais is good the way it is. The only issue is when there's food. L'mashal, if you use that kais during the Suda and you dipped in your bread, so now it has food residue. That's no good. But basically, kais doesn't have to be rinsed. So let's make a cheshbon. Why should I have to rinse my kais before using it for the third kais? Loimi boy, if you don't make a brux, you don't dip any food into the wine. But even if you make a brux, no one dips the matzah into the kais, and maybe the kais was taken away from the table. So it could be, if there's no food residue in the kais, you could just fill it up and use it for the third kais. But here we come to our first nishtana. The Marshal, in the Tshuvas, the end of Siman Peiches, he says, even if a whole year you don't rinse the kais, but the third kais should be rinsed. Why? It seems we want to become better people on this night. Something we don't do a whole year, we go the extra mile. It's a heilige Nacht, and we do things a little better. Now the emes is some people rinse every kais, even before they make kiddush straight from the break front, they'll rinse it. That's a pisoid. But here we see la halacha, and the Bach spells that out, even if you're not careful to rinse a kais a whole year, but the third kais should be rinsed. Now, I should add, this is not only the one that's benching. Everybody that's going to eventually use this third kais for the third kais should rinse it. The next question is a challenging question because it's negeya all the time, all over, and we have to clarify it. We are about to bench. Who has to fill the kais? Only the mezamin who's leading the zimun, or all the participants in the Seder? So here we come to a very important question that has numerous halachic ramifications, as we'll see. What is the identity of this third kais, what we are preparing to bench with? Is it simply a kais shel birchas hamazon? Then only the mezamin should fill up the kais. The rest of the family have no reason to do it until they drink it after benching. But if it's the third kais, it happens to be that the mezamin holds it for benching. But if it's the third kais, then it makes sense that everybody should fill it. So this lemaisa is a question how to identify the third kais. And lemaisa, this is where we see that it's really hard to believe that this is a kais of benching, because many people don't use a kais for benching. Or maybe nishtane. A whole year we're not makbid on the kais. But maybe this night we rinse it and we bench with the kais. You'll say, where do we find we do something just on the Pesach by night? I'll give you another example. Many people are not makbid to washing until Shedayim when they have fruits that were wet. Yet Klal Yisrael, universally, we wash our hands for the karpas, for the tibul. And what about the rest of the year? So it's interesting that the Taz in Tafai and Gimel, Sif Kat and Vav, says if we do it on Pesach, it's the right we should do it a whole year, and the fact that we are negligent and not washing the whole year is wrong. In other words, if you do it on Pesach, that indicates you have to wash the tibula b'mashka. But it's hard to criticize Klal Yisrael, and maybe this is another example of nishtana. A whole year we semech on the mekilim and we don't wash the tibula b'mashka, but Pesach, Leil Pesach, we do. So Lamaisa, we're back to our question. What is the identity of the third kais? Is it a kais benching that we do Pesach primarily, even if a whole year we don't? Or is it a regular kais shel dalet kaises? The nafkamina is who has to fill up the kais. So to suffice to say, this is Kamada Beferish Gemara. In Pesachim Kuf Yud Zayin, actually the Mishnah says you have to fill up the third kais. Zokti Gemara Shma Mina Berchas Hamazon Tuna kais. So you see, if you use a kais for benching, is a raya that benching needs a kais. Zokti Gemara, it's not a raya. That lamaisa could be it's a regular kais of dalet kaisis. As the Rashbam explains, it's not that you're making a kais shel benching, it's one of the dalet kaisis. So evidently, this third kais, even though it's filled before benching, is one of the dalet kaisis and is not necessarily a full-fledged kais shel benching. And I think that's the minhag that in most places, that all the kaisais, not just the mezamin, but all the participants fill up the third kais before benching. Now consider a more tricky question. Okay, so assume that's your minhag, and again, if someone has a minhag, he fills it up afterwards, we accept all minhagim. But the minhag seems to be that everybody fills up the kais before benching. Consider the next question, a little more tricky. During the benching, who has to hold the kais? If it's a kais, berachas hamazon, so only the mezamin. But if it's part of the third kais, not necessarily benching, so why should they all hold it? Or maybe it's sort of a third kais, but you don't have to hold it for benching. The mezamin has to hold it because it's also serving as a kais benching. So this is interesting, because l'maisa, every kais has some type of saying to it. We say something. The first kais has kiddush. The second kais has the first part of the hallel. The fourth kais has the second part of the hallel. The third kais needs some type of amira. So we connect benching to the third kais. In fact, the Dogel Merivava, that's the Rabbi Yehuda Simon Tov Pei Gimel, says if someone for some reason made kiddush on pas by the Seder, and he finally gets a kais of wine, he should say the bracha shagalonu, make a gafen, and then say halal and continue the Seder. Why? Because you have to have an amira on every kais. So it could be that's the oimik, that really this is a third kais. But we connect it to benching to have some type of amira. Now, Lamaisa, this is interesting. This is a fundamental question. If everybody holds the kais or just the mezamin, you would think it's a machab and shulchan aruch rishonim, to my knowledge, unless I couldn't find it. If someone would tell me, I would appreciate it. But it's not in the earlier poskim. I saw it by Yagid Moshe Chavtes Hey. He says it's good that each person should hold the kais for benching, not only the mezamin. Bavadja Yosef Chazoin Avadja in Barech Aleph says also that's the minhag. The only thing is you don't have to hold it a tefach high like benching, but it seems that they're assuming that we all should hold the kais. However, there's a sefer shiurei Tara that seems it's only the mezamin that has to hold it, and basically I could say each person has their minhag, but we could definitely understand that it's kedai to fill the kais before benching, and some people hold it as well. Now, lamaisa, some people, especially if you're inexperienced, you might find it distracting to have to hold the kais, to hold benching. You want to focus on the benching, you have to hold the kais. So there could be two alternatives. Fill the kais and keep it in front of you, or hold on to it while it's still on the table. Maybe you don't have to pick it up and hold it like the mezamin is doing, so you have both milas. But I should say that the ikka here is kavana. Let's not forget, there's an incredible Taisus in Brachas, Daf Nalef Med Beis, where Taisus says that benching must be said while sitting. And Taisus says something unusual, it's a pasuk. V'achalta v'savata. Savata is a conjunction of two words, shev eis. Now is the time to sit. So you sit by benching. Why? So Taisus says, since Berachas Hamazon is the Raisa, we have to have maximum kavana. So it's interesting. Taisus, based on a pasuk, is mechayev us to sit by benching. So I ask you, if someone holds the kais and he has more kavana, he feels elated and the hoibin, great. Hold the kais, gesundheit. But if someone will find it distracting and it will detract in his kavana, so forget it. Fill up the kais and either hold on to what's on the table, or stam, don't even hold on to it. More important than a minhag would be the kavana that's necessary for benching. Now, consider the next question. Let's say someone is alone. He is alone for the Seder. Does he have to fill up the kais before benching and hold it? After all, there's no mezumah, there's not even anybody but him. Or maybe there's just two people, husband and wife. So that's another nafkamina. If it's a kais of berachas hamazon, b'yichidus, no one uses a kais. If it's a kais of the Dalet kaises, fill it up. And both Taisvis in Pesachim Kufay and the Rosh and Ari Pesachim Siman Yudalid says even a yachid should take the kais before benching. So obviously, it seems that this is not a kais shel benching like we said of Zimun, but it's a Dalet kaises that the time is for some reason before benching. So that's an interesting nishtana. Even b'yachidus, you fill up the kais before benching. What I should mention, which is not any difference Pesach than a whole year, but sometimes it's an oversight, many people have a nice minhag before benching, they clean up the table. For two reasons. First of all, covered for the benching, and covered for the end of the Seder. You don't need all the food on the table, so they clean up the table. It's a covered for benching, and also it sort of gives a fresh start in this chachas. People are starting to fall asleep, so you give it a fresh start. Let's clean up, and we'll start as if it's a new. Wonderful minhag, good idea. But don't forget the general halacha that we find in Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Pei, based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin. You're not supposed to bench if there's no pas on the table. Now, of course, I don't mean to put down a piece of bread on the table, say the table, but make sure there's matzah on the table. Pas does not mean bread, it means lechem. Matzah is also lechem. So be careful that before benching, even if the table is perfectly clean, leave some matzah so the bracha is chal on that a bit of matzah, like we know in Shulchan Aruch. The next question is a double nishtana, something very unusual. Had I not learned this, I wouldn't believe it. And that is a simple question I gave for all of us. Are you supposed to wash mayim rechayim before benching by the Leilei Seder? So you're wondering, what's the shaila? I mean, some people don't wash the whole year. They base that on the sheet of the Shulchan Aruch. I'm talking about those that are makbid the whole year. Why is Pesach different? So I'll tell you why it might be different. Re'ei zeh pela. There's a whole Seder Hagadah, the Simanim, which I must tell you was not composed by a gifted writer. It's either Rashi that composed the Kadesh Orchatz, or it's one of the Bali HaToisv of Shmuel Flaiza, one of the Bali HaToisvis, but it was definitely written by Rishonim. And it's detailed, Kadesh, Orchatz, Rochza. He didn't leave out any washings. The washing for karpas, the washing for matzah, but there's no mention of mayim achrayim. Why not? But we also see something interesting. In the Yoitzris, now I'm not saying all say Yoitzris, but Yoitzris was composed by Rishonim. This was written, this particular Yoitzris, Lakei Ruchais, by the end, was written by Rabbi Yosef Toiv Elaim, and he writes, V'noitlin, you wash mayim achrayim, v'loy mevorchin, shemayim achrayim chayav ve'ein tunim bracha. So now we're getting mixed messages. The Rishonim in the Yoitz says you do wash mayim achrayim, and it's not in the Simanim. Why not? So listen to a dava pella hafle v'fella. The Leket Yoisha, which is the minhag of Trumas Hadeshen, in page 36, records the minhag of Trumas Hadeshen that a whole year did not wash mayim rechayim, like the sheet of some Gedolei Ashkenaz, which is not surprising, but he didn't wash the whole year, except twice a year he washed, and that's recorded later in Leket Yoisha, page 94. He washed the 2 nights of the Seder. Even though there's no Melech Sdoimis, which is why he didn't wash the whole year, but Pesach by night, B'shem Chibas HaKoisas V'Nisim, Nohagu by Silsulim, we have special Chumras Pesach by night. But you know what's even more astonishing? His source, his proof from the Yoitzris. Rabbi Yosef Toiv Elaim in the Yoitzris said to wash mayim rechayim. So his minhag was only twice a year he washed mayim rechayim. And he quotes other Rishonim that seem to have this minhag. So this is a striking nishtana. A whole year there's no mayim rechayim except Pesach by night. In other words, there seems to be a theme that we like to become better people Pesach by night. But what's really gishmak, the same Trumas Hadeshen in Leket Yoisha, page 86, records his minhag to rinse the kais of Dalet kaisis. Now, halacha there's no chiyuv, but again it seems to be consistent with shitasai. Pesach by night, we go the extra mile in many instances. So it seems that he's going l'shit with the opinion of the Yoitzris that you have to wash mayim rechayim. But you haven't seen anything yet. Because we have a different question. If it's so pashut to all that to wash mayim rechayim by the Seder, even if you don't do it a whole year, so why isn't it in the Simanim of the Leil Seder? Why did Rashi or Shmuel omit it? So now I'll tell you, on the Nishtana Fakert, if you look in the Ramah in Tov Ayin Hey, Sif Aleph, the Ramah records the minhag not to dip the matzah into salt by the Leilei Seder. It should be lechem oini, whatever the reason is, but we don't use salt. If so, maybe we could suggest that even if a whole year you use mayim achrayim, that's because you use salt by the table, it might have a trace of melech sdoimis, and it might be dangerous without washing. But Pesach by night, there's no salt by the table, maybe you don't have to wash mayim achrayim. You'll say, but we have Salzwasser, we dip the karpas in Salzwasser, so that's shtei tshuvas b'davar. First of all, let's not forget that after the Salzwasser we washed our hands for the hamoitzi. So even if there is melech damas, we washed it already. So we're all washed up, quote unquote. Also, it wasn't salt, it was very much diluted. Salt is Salzwasser. So Reis Apella. Reb Shloim Zalman, Alicha Shloim Shin Yud Aleph, Shin Yud Aleph, that is, he says the fact that it's not in the simanim of the Seder is an indication that you don't wash mayim achrayim. A whole year you do? He says, maybe the fact that it's leil shimurim and there's a protection, you don't have to worry about mayim achrayim because the melech sodaimis is not dangerous. But listen to what Go'ainis he adds in the Hagadah. If you look in the Or Zarua Hilchas Psachim Staf Samach Amid Beis, there's a pirish of Rabbeinu Shmuel on the Yotzris. Again, the Yotzris, Rabbi Shem, and Rabbi Shmuel has a pirish. And he adds, Mayim Echayim Chayva Mishum Sakona. So Rabbi Zalman says, maybe he's saying Fakeret. Since the reason for Mayim Echayim is Al Sakona, and Leilei Pesach, we feel secure in the Leil Shimurim. In fact, there are many halachas. We don't say the full krishma. We leave the door unlocked. We don't say Me'ein Sheva on Pesach, Chachal B'Shabbos. So Shlomo makes a brilliant shittasai. The fact that it's a Leil Shemurim and it's not in one of the Simonim, Pesach by night, there's no reason to wash Mayim Rechayim. So listen to a double nishtana. Some people never wash mayim rechayim a whole year, only leilei Pesach. And some people a whole year are makbid mayim rechayim, leilei Seder, don't use mayim rechayim. Now, besides a beautiful lishitase, look at a beautiful Torah was to learn. Every nuance is accounted for b'dik de gadol. So lemaisa, I should say, follow your own minhag. I think most people do wash mayim rechayim. And certainly those that have the minhag to dip the matzah into salt, the like Ramah, should use mayim rechayim. Next question, which also is another nishtana, who is the mezamein by the Seder? So basically you're wondering, especially after Daf we just learned brachas, what's the shayla? Mechabim shulchan aruch v'yishal alaf based on the Gemara, oireyach mevarech. If you have a guest, you honor him with the benching. And by Pesach by night, there's always guests. So what's the shayla? Well, here we see another nishtana of the Seder night. The Ramah at the end of Tov Ayin Tes says the minhag is that the balabayis benches is the mezamein by Leil Pesach. Shenem b'toiv ayin hu yivorech, and lemaisa he is a toiv ayin because he said kol dichvan yesu v'yechel. Just think, a special halacha unique to Leil Seder. Not the Oireyach, the Balabas, because he's very generous and he made this broad invitation called Dichvin Yesu v'yechel. Dr. Moshe explains that the fact that he's so generous shows that he is an honorable person of Toiv Ayin. Now, Lamaisa, here we see another exception of the Leil Seder. Now, the Chok Yakov on this show, Ramah, spells out, even if you have a guest, Balabas goes first. Now, Yeshiva the Barachim asked, but I also say, we Barachim also say, they asked. I told him, Yishkoyach, you're not giving away anything that's yours, it's not your food. Your father, the Balabais, is the generous one, you're just mimicking him. So therefore the father benches. Now the question is, if you're Zaycha to have parents or in-laws by the Seder, you want to mechabed your father or your father-in-law. So the Chok Yakov concludes, Omnam, ein lachish im birach achad. There's nothing wrong with being mechabed someone else. So at your discretion. The Aruch HaShulchan says you could be mechabed an oireyach nechbad because midina de gemara oireyach mevarich. So some people make a compromise. The first night the balabas bench, second night the parents, or fakeret, first night parents. So you have to use a little seichel also. But here we see another nishtana of the Leil Sefer. If a person doesn't have a zeman, he has him and his wife and a daughter, or this year especially, people are not going away as much as other years. So basically, if there's no zeman, so what's the problem? But here we see something very interesting. The Ramah, the Torah, in Taf Ayin Tes, says, mitzvah lachzer acha zimun. If you don't have zeman, try to get zeman. Go to the next neighbor, invite them, do something to create a zeman. And the reason, and that's really a quote of the Rosh, that Lamaisa, because in Pasuk and Tilim says, when you say Hallel, there should be three. One says and two respond. So it's interesting, you're talking about benching, and the Raya is from Hallel. Okay, Lamaisa, the Shulchan Aruch, in Taf Ayin Tes Aleph says, mitzvah lachzer acha zimun. We'll soon see the connection to Hallel. But the question is, holy, we don't find such a halacha if you don't have it created, so why is Pesach night different? The answer is precisely, nishtana halayla hazeh. The Kedushas halayla is awesome. And if you could go the extra mile and create a zimun of three, tavei alecha bracha. Now, Lamaisa, that's the Prisha's explanation to this halacha, ratzu lasois kedinoi, and Lamaisa, the Achreinim say if you could get a zimun, it's very meaningful, first of all, for benching, but as we'll soon see more so regarding the Hallel, you're supposed to have at least three people in participating, one and two, the two respond. Let me tell you another nishtana. Let's say a person benched, he ate, of course, a suda, he benched, he forgot to yalav v'yavai. So the pashat halacha is that you have to bench over. Because the Sudas, Shabbos, and Yom Tov require saying the Me'ein HaMa'ura. In fact, even if you have a suffix, you have to bench over, because suffix deraisa l'chumra. Or you go kabasa chazak, whatever the svara is. But listen to an interesting nishtana. Because if a person only ate a kazayis and benched, so the entire benching is the Rabbanan. So then by a suffix, it's a suffix the Rabbanan lahakol. So that's the Magen Avram in Kuf Pei Dalet Tzivka and Ches. So if someone washes l'mashal to a suda only as a kazayis of matzah, benched, and as a suffix, if he said yalav v'yavai, he has to repeat the benching. Zok Tichsam Seifa. Now I did not find this in the Tichsam Seifa's writing, but the Divrei Yisrael in Chela Gimel Simon Yud Ches quotes this from an earlier source, B'Shem Tichsam Seifa, that Pesach by night, if someone for some reason was restricted, could only eat a kazayis, and he benched, he has a suffix, yalav v'yavai, he has to repeat it. Zog the Chsam Seifa, you have to be Chsam Seifa to say this. Because Pesach by night, as we'll soon see, la'alocha ataka d'rachmona. That's a lashon of Tosfos and brachas daf membeis, that we're not eating by parents or children, we are by the Rebbeinu Shalom's tish. Ataka d'rachmona. So the matzah is so choshev, even a kazayis is choshev, and there's a chiv d'oraisa to bench on a kazayis of matzah. Again, I can't say this, but the Chsam Seifa says this, and his basis, like I told you, is a lashon of Tosfos. In Taf Ayin Zayin, see Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch records the following halach. Someone was having Shulchan Aruch by the Seder, he already had his dessert, he said, let's bench, and he fills up the kais, he's holding it, and then says, what are you doing? We didn't say you'd have to kaivim yet. So what's the halacha in such a case a regular year, during the regular year? If you said Havlan v'nivrach, you masiach das. If you want to have more pas, you would have to make another moitzi. So this person would have to make another moitzi. Zok Tosfos and brachis, it's also Rabbeinu Peretz, the Tur, and Shulchan Aruch Taf Ayin Zayin quotes this. No. Because it's true, if you're a balabas and you decide, you're the head of the family, and you decide let's bench, that's the hesach hadas. But if you're a guest by someone else, you can't be masiach das, you're not calling the shots. So then your hesach hadas is meaningless. Says Tosfos and Rabbeinu Peretz, Pesach by night we're all guests. By Avinu Avarachman, by our Tat Zatish. So what they're saying is incredible as can be, but it's so real that you have the Rebbeinu Shalom's table that there's no hesach hadas. So the Chsam Seifa used that and extended that that even a kazayis matzah is very chashiv. You know, you say, people that say the askina sudasa, so Shabbat is one dosach, and Pesach, sudasa, the kutshe brichi ushchinte. That's another inishtana of the Leil Seder. You know, this year many people are staying home. They feel bad. They're not going to their parents. They're not going to the children. They would love to go and have guests. We're all guests by Borei Olam, and let's take advantage of that. I should mention also another nishtana, B'chsam Seifa, and this is taka a tshuva of his in Chayshim Mishpat. It's in Kuf Tzadik Vav. He writes to a city that obviously we're not being careful with the mitzvah of matzah, and he says, you know, today after the Churban Abayis, we lost so many mitzvahs. The only mitzvah, the Rais Achil, that remains is matzah. And if you don't do that right, Hayita Beini Hashem Chalila v'Chalila. Some safe is pain, how careful we have to be in the mitzvah of matzah, the only the Rais Achil. Now, of course, everybody says, what do you mean? Sukkah is also a mitzvah deraisa, but I guarantee that some safe didn't forget the mitzvah of sukkah. Sukkah is a mitzvah of sukkah, not achila per se. Erev Yom Kippur is machlaik is a mitzvah deraisa. But matzah is the last remaining deraisa achil that we have. That's another nishtana, and therefore let's make sure to do it right. This leads to another nishtana halacha of the Leil Seder. Noshim, if they forget to say Ritzei on Shabbos or Yalvayavay on Yom Tiv, Pashat, they have to repeat the benching. Even though the Patavim Zman Gram is, but the Chayv in Shabbos, the Chayv in keeping Yom Tiv, and therefore they have to bench properly. Rabbi Kiva Eiga has his famous Chiddush in the Tshuva Siman Aleph and in the Shulchan Aruch Kuf Peiches Siv Vav, and he says, Yom Tiv, they're not Chayv. Why? Because it's a regular Zman Grama. The Suda they're not Chayiv. So if they left it out in benching, they don't repeat the benching. But he says, Zulas, Leil Aleph to Pesach. The exception is, of course, Shabbos and Leil Aleph to Pesach. So that's another nishtana. If they leave out Yalav Yov according to Rabbi Kiva Eiga upon him, you don't bench over except for Pesach. Now, not everybody agrees to Rabbi Kiva Eiga, because most poskim say, what do you mean? Yom Tiv is like Shabbos. You have to keep Yom Tiv, you have to eat the Suda. But like Rabbi Kiva Eiga, we have another nishtana that a woman forgot Yalav Yavai on any other Yom Tiv or Shvi Shal Pesach, you don't repeat. Leil Aleph to Pesach, they would have to bench over even according to Rabbi Kiva Eiga. I should mention, Kiva Eiga's lashon is Leil Aleph, but the poskim say it's Lav Dafka Aleph, Leil Beis in Chutz La'aretz as well. The next question is a very obvious question. We start benching and we finish benching. Now we're going to drink the third kais. Do we make a gofen on the third kais? So that's no question, because every benching we drink the kais, you make a bracha. You knew you're drinking it, but benching is a siluk. It's the end of the suda, and now the kais is a new drinking. So that's pashit that when you drink the third kais, or make a new gofen. That's not any different Pesach than a whole year. What is a question is after you finish the third kais, and you drank a revius, do you make a ala gefen? So, lamaisa, why not? You finish the third kais, and you're not supposed to drink in between kaises. But then again, you have the fourth kais. So here we see the minhag is not to make a bracha achrein in the third kais. Taf ayin tes aleph, you make a gofen, you drink baseba, and you don't make a bracha achrein. From the third kais till the fourth kais could be quite a long time, and the shir ikul by drink is less than foods. Okay, wine is also very satisfying, but it still drinks. So the poskim seem to suggest that since the wine came after the Suda, it combines with the Suda, and therefore the Sheriko is a little longer than regular. Okay, so the minhag is, Lamaisa, we make a bracha rishon on the third kais, but no bracha achreina on the third kais. The big question, which brings us to a new nishtana, is when you get to the fourth kais, do you make a bracha rishona? So let's just think about this. I made a bracha on the third kais. I didn't make a gafen. I'm connecting it to the fourth kais. So why should I make a new bracha rishona on the fourth kais? It's connected to the third kais. It has all the effect of the bracha. And you didn't change location, you didn't terminate it, you didn't have hesach. And especially, our minhag is not to make a bracha on the third kais. Why shouldn't the bracha rishona be said on the fourth kais? And indeed, svardim, this is in Siman Tov Pei, the mechaber shita is, you drink the fourth kais without a new bracha rishona. Yet the minhag of Ashkenazim, as recorded in the Ramah, is you make a new bracha on the fourth kais. Why? The main reason is because it's a new mitzvah. As Mishnah Berurah explains, it's a new mitzvah which deserves a new bracha. Now this is an unusual nishtana. It's not a birchas ha-mitzvah like the bracha on tzitzis. It's a bar gafen. But since it's the gafen on a new mitzvah, for some reason it's considered a birchas ha-mitzvah, and that's unusual. But I should mention the Pri Megadim in Tov Ayin Daled Aleph says that when the minhag of Ashkenazim again is you make a gafen on the first kais, let's go back a little bit, and a new gafen on the second kais, which is also questionable. Because you don't make a bracha, why can the bracha continue? So Pri Megadim says the minhag is making a new bracha, but it's a good idea when you make the gafen on the first kais, kiddush, have in mind it's only going on the first kais, not on the second kais. So when you get to the second kais, you're more convinced that a new bracha rishona is required. Now, like for Svardim, do not make a new bracha rishona on the second kais, vakert. They make a gafen by the first kais of kiddush. They have a mind to pat to the second kais. Now, we could add the same is true with third and fourth. Ashkenazim that make a bracha on the fourth. So when you make a bracha on the third, have in mind only third, not fourth. So the fourth is clear. And Svardim that make a bracha on third, not the fourth, have in mind third goes on the bracha of the fourth as well. The next nishtana halacha of Leil Seder is when you finish benching, especially the balabas benches, does he send some of his wine to his wife? Now, Daf Yomi learned it not long ago, the story in Brachas and Aleph about Yalta, who got a little violent when she wasn't sent Kaisel Birchas HaMazon. And that's Kepas in Shulchan Aruch Kuf Pei Gimel Daled. The women should be sent to the Kais benching. But it doesn't seem that's the minhag Pesach by night. What happened? And Fakert, Pesach by night is a man of bracha. We give brachas, the shari bracha is open. So this Rabbi say brings us to our original chakira that we began with. What is the identity of the third kais? If it's a regular birchas hamazon, send it to the wife. But we concluded that it's really the third kais and not a birchas hamazon necessarily. Then we could understand that if it's not a birchas hamazon kais, even though it's used for benching, so Adrabah, don't send it to the wife. That might be ma'asav ala kaises. I think the minhag is not to send to the wives, and I think the reason is, like we said, it's basically not a kais benching, even if you have a zimun. Also, the women have their own kais in front of them, so that's chal on that. Lamaisa, I did see the Lekad Yoshet, Amid 86 says his minhag was to send the kais benching to his wife, but I don't think that's the minhag b'derech klal. But there we see another nishtana. Another big nishtana, which I won't even get into, but if someone has time, look into it, it could be a share for itself. If someone is zayich to make a chasana the week of Pesach, and he has Sheva Brachas during Pesach, a huge sugya, what do you do about the Sheva Brachas? Because you're not supposed to be ma'asav ala kaises, but you have to have two kaises, benching and Sheva Brachas, so that's a tumah for itself, but that's a colossal nishtana, because there are special halachos regarding Sheva Brachas on Leil Pesach. Now we begin the next part of the Seder, and that is the Hallel. I must mention, first of all, the minhag is to rinse the kais after the third kais. Again, is not a chiyuv, but lamaisa, people do it, and that's probably similar to what we said earlier. We want to do things right. When do you fill the fourth kais? So we say shvay chamoscha And it seems from the Gra and the Chayodam and Mashmois of the Aruch HaShulchan that after Shvay Chamascha, then you fill up the fourth kais. But the Rishonim, the Reikeach and the Kolboi, it seems that you fill up the fourth kais before Shvay Chamascha. So it seems there's a shaykhis to the Shvay Chamascha. And indeed, in Klal Yisrael, there are two minhagim. If you fill up the kais before Shvay Chamascha or after Shvay Chamascha. You follow your minhag, but at least you know now where your minhag is coming from. Question: where did Shvay Chamascha come from? So this is interesting. Hallel is found in the Gemara. Birchas Nishmas is Birchas Shir, but Shvay Chamascha is not in the Gemara. Now, Shvay Chamascha is a very chashuv a statement. It's 3 psukim in Tilim and 1 pasuk in Eicha. But where did it come from? So the Darkei Moshe in Taf Pei in the beginning says that since we have 4 kaises responding to the 4 lashonos of Paranias, and we're almost finished the Seder, now was a time to say Shvay Chamascha. There are other reasons that's found in the Gilyon of Shulchan Aruch. The Meiri in the beginning of Arpei Pesachim, according to Yushalmi, quotes other reasons. Some Sefer says that we're really taking zugais on Pesach, which is dangerous, but we have a leil shimurim. So let's put the sakana of the zugais on the goyim. Or some say because of the goyim we lost so many precious mitzvahs leil seder, so shvay chamascha ala goyim. But whatever the case is, shvay chamascha has become part of the seder. Should it be said sitting or standing? So many stand, but there are those that stay by the table and they sit. The Aruch HaShulchan says we say before Shvay Chamascha we say Baruch Haba, but Lamaisa Shvay Chamascha is said either sitting or standing. The Yosef Aimitz and Tavshin Peiches seems to say you hold the kais while you say Shvay Chamascha. Most people, I think, don't do that, but either minhag is of course acceptable. What's an intriguing minhag that's not in Gemara and not even in Rishonim is the minhag of opening the door for Eliyahu Hanavi. Now, of course, as children we thought that's the most important part of the Seder, but you look it up, there's no source in Gemara or Rishonim. In other words, we'll soon see there are many minhagim by the Seder based on Rishonim. But the minhag of opening the door for Eliyahu Hanavi is not in Gemara. The Darkei Moshe in the beginning of Taf Pei quotes from the Mari Bruna, one of the early Achrayim, why? So he goes to Rishonim. The Rishonim say that you open the door by the Seder to show our Amunah in Leil Shimurim. So therefore, we open the door by Shvaich also. In other words, it's a later minhag based on Rishonim of opening the door during the Seder. Now, it's not part of Shvaich per se. In other words, it's not a minhag to open the door and start screaming at the goyim. That's certainly not the right thing to do. But it's a display of our emunah. And many halachas are done because of leil shimurim. We don't say the complete krishma. We eat zugis. We go to sleep with unlocked doors. But here's the Ramah in the end of Taf Pei. V'yesh oymer sheyesh loim eshvoich koydem loylanu uleftayach hadelas k'dei lizkar shu leil shimurim u'b'schus emunah zu yavei Mashiach v'yishbay chamase ala akum. And Matei Moshe in Taf Reish Nun Hey explains it's not enough to just have emunah in theory. You have to do something. Lahareis emunah seinu. And that is the Shvay Chamascha. The Beis Halevi says, interestingly enough, and this is in Shmois Yud Beis Mem Beis, that Lamaisa by the Seder we're taking zugais. So we have to demonstrate that we're confident in Leil Shimurim. What's interesting is the Chak Yankov says that's why we don't lock the door. Again, an exercise in emunah. Now, the same Chak Yakov says if it's shchichi azeka, so then you're allowed to lock the door. But the point is, it's a leil of emunah. Matzah is called meichav emenusa, and we do different exercises to show our emunah in Mashiach. In fact, the Yosef Aimitz, it also goes back a few hundred years ago in Siman Tavshin Peiches, Matoi v'yafa minig that some people, when they open the door, there's someone waiting by the other side of the door, and he falls in to sort of portray Mashiach's coming. Which sounds like an interesting minhag, but that's what he says, to try to do a demonstration of what we look forward to so anxiously. Now, Lamaisa, it's interesting. You open the door for Shvoi Chamascha, and then there seems to be a minhag to invite Eliyahu Hanavi. Now, Lamaisa, are those two connected? So let me tell you something. I grew up, I had my minhag, my father's minhag. Everybody went to the door, opened the door, and said Shvoi Chamascha. When I gave this shir in the yeshiva, I asked around, and many Baruchim says it's not true. Someone opens the door, and everybody's saying by the table, and they say Shvoi Chamascha by the table, seated by the table. In our family, everybody goes down and says it by the door. So it's hard to find earlier sources, but it seems that the real reason for saying Shvoich is that our display of Amunah, we open the door, and some people sort of combine the two. Open the door and say Shvoich HaMascha, but it's not necessarily the original minhag. It seems two minhagim have merged. The minhag of saying Shvoich HaMascha, the minhag of opening the door, either it's separate minhagim or it's one minhag. Now, someone, of course, some circles, there's one person goes, open the door, and the rest stay by the table. So again, each minhag is acceptable. The main thing is, if you do say it by the door, not have to wake up the neighbors, especially non-Jewish neighbors. We have to make a Kiddush Shem in all things we do. But what's really interesting is what people think, and children especially, that Eliyahu Hanavi comes to every Seder. Now, does it say that? It says that regarding a bris. The Aruch HaShulchan says to say Baruch Haba, but does it say you have to mamish believe Eliyahu Hanavi comes to the table? So some fathers shake the table as Eliyahu Hanavi is drinking the kais of Eliyahu. Okay, very nice. But I would say the Hasidim used to be in a spoil that the Noid of Yehuda, after the Seder, would escort Eliyahu Hanavi out the door. And he was despoiled from the tzidkis, the kedusha of Noid of Yehuda, who smamish to Eliyahu Hanavi. No, if you see Eliyahu Hanavi, gesund to hate. But what's also interesting, and this grada is the latest source of all other minhagim of the Seder. This has the latest source. It's not in Gemara, not in Rishonim even. Again, we think is part of the Aseres HaDibris, but it's not in any earlier source. It's not even in Shulchan Aruch, in fact. And that's what we call the Kais Shel Eliyahu Hanavi. The Chak Yakov writes, Nehagni Medinas Elu, to fill up a kais, and that's Kais Shel Eliyahu. That means the Chak Yaakov was one of the Achrayim. Before him, they didn't have it. He says, Medinas Elu. It wasn't the prevalent custom. The Maral in the Hagadah Divrei Megidim, Lamed Ois Aleph, he says, Mehagin kan leftayach adeles, and also to fill up a kais. Why? Because we want to be near to by Kadosh Baruch Hu, we want to be pleasing and deserving of schusim. So we do something to show our amunah in the imminent arrival of Mashiach, to show this total amunah, the commitment. We fill up a kais shel Eliyahu. And then he adds very important words, Ki kol dova misparsem v'nishtaresh yoysa bein harayim kashiyesha im amira oid ezo asiya b'poyel. It's not just talk is cheap. You have to do something. You fill up a kais for Eliyahu Hanavi, you're putting your money where your mouth is. So the Maral and the Chak Yaakov, or I wouldn't say latest Achrayim, but certainly not the earliest Achrayim, they speak about this kais shel Eliyahu. Now, it's a very beloved minhag, and certainly we should do it with the greatest devotion, but it seems it's another expression of our amunah in Bias HaMashiach. It's clearly a minhag which Klal Yisrael have embraced in a very big way. Some call it the kais chamishi. Now, when do you fill the kais shel Eliyahu? Again, there are different minhagim because the whole thing is minhag. Some fill by beginning of the Seder, some do it before benching, and some do it later. There are three different minhagim, as we said, that seem to merge. Shvoi Chamascha, open the door, and Kais Shel Eliyahu, but they have different sources when you learn the sugya properly. What do you do with the Kais of Eliyahu Hanavi? so some pour it back. Why waste it? Some unsafe covered it and used it the next day for kiddush. I guess he was the fact that it was covered, it didn't lose its tam, so it wasn't like a yayin that became pogum, was ruined. Some people use it for the fourth kais. There are different minhagim. Some people give a kibbut of filling up the kais, but like everything else, minhag Yisrael is certainly Torah. Which door do you have to open for the minhag to open the door? So everybody knows if you have a 1 or 2 family house, you go downstairs, but let's say it's an apartment building. So Rabbi Yashiv is quoted as saying, Eliyahu Navi is not fazed by steps. Open up your upstairs door, your mapeset, as he said, and it's good enough. The next group of questions is another unique nishtana halayla hazeh. We say halacha by the Seder, right? So that's pretty simple. I say halacha a lot of times during the year. But look how many differences we could mention between the halacha of Pesach and a whole year. First of all, every halacha has a bracha, especially Ashkenazi, even on a chatzi halacha. There's no halacha by the Seder. No bracha by the Seder. You're not allowed to be mafsik in halacha, and we break the halacha into 2. We can't say halacha at night, only by day. Pesach we say it at night. You're supposed to stand when you say Hallel. Ha'oim the Meveis Hashem, the Ramah says. Not Pesach by night. Women are patvam Hallel, not Pesach by night. We'll soon see an Avel is patvam Hallel, not Pesach by night. And some hold the kais by the Hallel of the Pesach by night. And this leads us to an important nishtana. As the Ran in Kuf Yud Ches quotes of Haigoin, she'ein mevorchen al halal b'leil psachim, she'ein anu koirin oise b'toiras kriya, el b'toiras oime shira. It's not a likroy es hal like we say the rest of the year. This zintzich, a person expresses his simcha. It's a shira. It's not a halal. Tais is in Sukkah daf lamed ches. Says Shani Hal the Pesach the Alanes Ba the Af Hein Hayib Ois. That's why women are Chayv and Hal on Pesach. So the Briskirov in Chanukah Gimel Vav and the beautiful Hezbollah of the Amik Bracha is that Hallel on Yom Tiv is on the Yom Tiv. Pesach is my redemption. Chayiv lirais es atzmai ki hu yatsa Mitzrayim. Lefikach anachnu chayavim. Or v'nayda lecha shir chadash al gula seinu al b'dus nafsheinu. A regular howl is on the ness of Yetzias Mitzrayim or whatever it is, but Hallel on Pesach is my redemption, my ness, my seeing the Yad Hashem in my life. That's why there's no bracha, because you can't do the kriya as a halal. The mitzvah is not kriya. That's why nashim are chayiv and halal afein b'yisanes. That's why it's said at night, as the unsafe in the Tshuva and Simon and Aleph says, because b'shas nes mamish hashir yir lachem kuleilis kadesh chag. And that's why regular kriyas halal is done standing, but halal on Pesach is shira. The Chsan Soifa writes, another reason dafka sit, because we saw from Taisus earlier, to sit by benching, because there's more kavana. Sheves, Halal on Pesach needs more kavana. And I should mention his description of his Heilige Zaydas, some Soifas Halal. He says, I heard my Zaydas Halal, mi merchek harbe, b'shuki b'roi, nishma koile b'koidesh miroi, hergeshes, rishbei eish, shaleves ka. His Hallel resonated throughout the streets of where he lived. And that's really a Gemara. The Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Samachay, Daf Peihem at Beis. The Hallel Pesach by night was me Poki Igra, Merapsin Igra. That's why the Chok Yankiv and Tov Pei, Sif Beis says, even during Avelus, where there's no Hallel, but when someone goes into Pesach as a novel, he does say Hallel. And I should mention, that might be the Pshat in the Ramah and Tov Ayin Zayin, where the Ramah says one should try to say Hallel before Chatzos Pesach by night. because it's a din in Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now, Lamaisa, we have a hard enough time getting the Afikoimen in before Chatzos, and the minhag Yisrael is not to be makbid. I think most people are not makbid. In fact, the Ma'aser Rav, the Goyin, and Kuf Tzaddik Aleph, the Aruch HaShulchan explains that, and that seems to be the minhag not to rush up so much to make halal before Chatzos, but we see clearly this is a unique halal. It's my redemption. It's my geula. And I want to just leave you with a few quick thoughts to think about. I guess, as we said, early Simchas Yom Tov, each one tein l'chacham v'yech gemoed. Why is there no bracha achreina on the first kos? First kos we drank, and many people are makbid revius. Where's the bracha achreina on that? You're going to say benching? Let me remind you. Generally, we have the Seder beginning approximately 9 o'clock, and benching, if we're lucky, is Chatzos. How could the benching at Chatzos pater the wine that you drank 5 hours earlier? So some kept on drinking throughout the Seder. They probably got sicker after a while. Some people made a quick Seder, which many tired fathers would like to do, but it's not done. And Lamaisa, there are some that made al hagafen on the first kos. An al hagafen, a bracha achreina. But the minhag is not like that, not to rush and not to keep on drinking and not to make an al hagafen. And I'll give you a little of a lead, of a hint, why not? Because as we saw that the dalet koses are not regular koses, they are koses shel mitzvah. So perhaps shir equal applies when you have a shtiyah of hana. When you have a shtiyah of mitzvah, then it's not limited to shir equal. The zweite kasha that I'd like to share with you is, imagine someone benched with a kos and drank the wine, and then he realized he forgot Yalav Yavoy in benching. So a man and women have to repeat the benching. The question is, does he have to rewind and fill up a third kos, bench on it, and drink it again? He just finished the third kos. So the question is, the fact that the benching was not yoitza, does he have to repeat the third kos as well? So Shlomo Zalman or the Cheshleima Amit Shin Yud Beis says he has to. Because if the benching is no good, the third kos was no good. However, this is not the sheet of most paiskim, and it's very much related to our original point. Because as we proved that the third kos is not a kos benching, it's a kos of the third kos. Says Rav Vozna in Chelik Tes Mem Aleph, on this very question, since it's not a kos birchas hamazon necessarily, but it's a third kos, why do you have to repeat the third kos? You have to repeat benching, but not the third kos. Now, Lamaisa Shlomo Zalman was aware of that, of course, and he develops his understanding ayin sham. But I could say that Lamaisa, a third kos, does not have to be repeated. Someone told me that maybe it's an idea to fill up the kos and keep it on the table, but then you're not gaining, you're not drinking. So maybe you'll look at it like when you bench by shalosh shudas, you don't drink it. But Lamaisa, I'm comfortable to say you don't have to fill up another kos, because the benching was possible, but not that the third kos was possible. The dritte child that I want to leave you with is an unusual nishtana. It's interesting, kirv is not a new phenomenon. You look in the Shulchan Aruch Taf Pei Dalid, there's a whole simon about someone that finished the Seder and wants to go to help people that don't know how to make their own storim. So the Shulchan Aruch discusses what he could do. He can make a bracha for them. They don't know how to make brachas. So he can make a bracha for them because it's all birchas ha-mitzvahs and af b'sheyatza moitza. He can make a moitzi and he can make the brachas and wine for these irreligious people. But listen to an incredible nishtana. You're going to give them matzah, you're going to make a bracha for these fraya people, but they don't know how to bench. So you're going to leave them without benching? So the Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch says, but you're not allowed to bench for them if you didn't eat. Simple enough. But the Big Day Yesha and the Maimon Mordechai and the Sharatzinis, if Cotton Hay quotes them, he says, no. Since this matzah, this whole achila is one big mitzvah's achila, it's not a birchas hanenin, and we would add like the chasam soifa, even like kazayas is the raisa. You're actually allowed to bench, even though you didn't eat a morsel, because you finished the Seder long ago. You're allowed to bench just for the irreligious Jews. So here we could, if you want a good riddle to ask your family, How could it be you could bench a full benching even though you didn't eat a shred of food? And the answer is not like the Shulchan Aruch, true, but like the Maimon Mordechai and the Big Day Yesha, you could bench just for someone else. The fourth question, another nishtana question, someone finished the fourth kais, had a revius, made ala gafen, but he blew it. He left out the askara of Yom Tiv. Does he have to repeat the ala gefen? The me'en shalish. So you're wondering, what's the shaila? I never heard of repeating an ala me'en shalish even on Shabbos or Yom Tiv. That's because it's not a chiyuv to snack. But since there's a chiyuv to have dalet kaisis, maybe if you left out the ala gefen on the fourth kais, which really ledidan third and fourth kais nachtetzu, maybe you have to repeat the ala gefen. However, we don't find this halacha, and the answer is pashut. Avad you have to have a chiyuv dalet kaisis, but you don't have to have a revius. You yaitze with a rive revius. Also, you can even use chamar medina if there's no wine. So although there's a chiyuv of dalet kaisis, there's no chiyuv of revius of wine, mamish, and therefore you don't repeat the ala gefen. Now listen to the next question. The fifth shaila, if someone, by the end of the fourth kais, pashut, he couldn't drink too much wine. He just had a roy revius and that's it. Does he make an ala gefen? So in all the machzarim it says, make sure, in all the Hagadah it says, make sure to drink revius by the fourth kais so you can make an ala gefen. But let's say he couldn't, he can't get his act together to drink more wine, only a roy revius. So it's very yitachin that here's a situation you can make an ala gefen without a revius. Why? Actually, you have a revius. If you drank revius by the third kais, and our minhag is not to make a ala gefen after the third kais, so the bracha of the gefen on the, now you could say on the fourth kais, which is not really mechuyev, but on the third kais. So you have an unusual situation where you have a ala gefen after the fourth kais without a revius being consumed. But you have to make sure at least that you had a revius in the third kais. And achrin chaviv, an unusual nishtana, there's an incredible tshuva. If you have it, it's kedai to look at it inside. The Chayim Shol, that's the chidah in his tshuva, Siman Chav Ches, heard, as he asked the Shaila, someone made fun of the Hagadah. Who does it? Seems very, interesting, like a folk tale. Also this and that, like the whole thing is like one fairy tale. Now, if you notice, I think from the chidah did not say Hagadah, because not all people said it, and the chidah was a Svardi. But he writes so strongly, mamash fire and brimstone. Someone like this who makes fun of mislaitis on minhag Yisrael, gadol g'dei oilam k'doishi elyon darda v'chachamav, and he says yemafak the minhag Yisrael. He says this person should be put in chayrim. He says I heard someone made more than 10 pshatim b'derech pardes on the Hagadah, and you made fun of it. And he writes very, very strong terms against this person. Someone told me that, last year actually, that he went to the Svarm store, there's a whole safe of 36 pshatim just on Hagadah. They say the Kotzke said, Kol Hashirim Kodesh, but Shir Hashirim is Kodesh HaKadoshim, and all the Piyutim are Kodesh, and Hagadah is Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, of course, everything in the Hagadah is Heilig, but it's so incredible that even the Hagadah, because nishtana v'nishtana halayla hazeh, how this night has potential, is hard to put in words. But let me tell you, Tyre Yidin, this year we have to realize and appreciate the Seder more than ever. Because Yidin need a big Yeshua, Klal Yisrael needs a big Yeshua, but we have to remember what we learned today, the uniqueness of the Leil Seder. The fact that it's a Leil Shimurim, and we have to demonstrate our Amunah and Bitachon in Hashem. And yes, we are facing some great nisyonis, maybe unparalleled in history. But we have to remember the Rebbeinu Shalom is the same Avinu of Arachamon Hamerachem Rachim Aleinu, and the same Borei that we say in davening twice a day, Abbas Oilam Aftanu, or some say Ava Rabba, and they're both true. We have to say it with the same confidence, Ava Rabba Aftanu, Abbas Oilam Aftanu. And we have to have the emunah that there's a purpose for our suffering. You know, it's interesting, I always mispoil. The climax of T.S. Mitzrayim was the Oz Yoshe Yidden sang, is that Kelevi Anveyu, the clarity of emunah. Isn't it a pella? They just spent 210 years in inhumane, undescribable, unfathomable suffering. And now they left. Wonderful. But they were able to go from avodum ve'inu oisam, such intense shibud, to say zekeli v'anveyu, and the answer is yes. Because Yidden had emunah and they realized that the shibud became the geula. Or as I saw from Rabbi Yeshua in the Hagadah Yohu, the Pesach, matzah, and maror we say in the Hagadah. But it seems to be chronologically incorrect. Pesach, maror, and matzah. First goes maror, and then matzah. First was the shibud and the geula. So Rav Shua used to say that no, after they had the geula, they realized that even the maror, even the bitterness was part of the shibud. The bitterness was the prelude to the geula. And I'm allowed to add, it's bitter now. We have a very difficult matzah. Bitter is like the maror, the tamcha. But look at the tamcha, the Rashi Tevis of tamcha is tamid misaprim kevoyot kale. And we have to use the Leil Seder and the days preceding the Leil Seder to prepare our and steigen our emunah and turn tamcha into tamid misaprim kevoyot kale, or to turn the Seder, which tzaddikim have said begins with kadesh and ends with kodesh hakadoshim, the shir hashim that's kodesh hakadoshim. Or as we learned today, that ends with Hagadah, that's Kodesh HaKadoshim. And we have to have a hal that will be Meraps and Igra. And we have to realize something else. Twice a year we end an avodah with Lashon Haba B'Yushalayim. Nilo Yom Kippur and Pesach Seder. Did you notice something incredible? We have a 40-day period beginning with Chodesh Elul. And the climax is Lashon Haba B'Yushalayim. And that I could understand. We start Chodesh Elul, and then Slichos, and Rosh Hashanah, and then the Seres Meitzuvah, Yom Kippur. After all that, Lashon Haba B'Yushalayim. But Pesach by night, a few hours after we start, we're already saying Lashon Haba B'Yushalayim, and the answer is, that is the unlimited potential of the Seder. A few hours, we could go from Kadesh to Kodesh HaKadoshim. From Tamcha to Tamid Mesapim Kavayit Kale. And from a Shibud, we could say Zekeli V'Anveyu. We could give Shebach to the Rebbeinu Shloim. Alavayu B'Zoicha, Taka literally, to say what we say in the Hagadah. V'noida L'cha Shir Chodosh, a new Shira. Al Geula Seinu, Al Padus Nafsheinu, this is me. Me and Tavshin Pei in this darkness. Baruch Ato Hashem Go'al Yisrael. It's a Lashon Hoiva. And we'll be Zoichet to see the Geula Shleima B'Meher V'Yameinu Al Freilach and Simcha T'Kiyamtiv to all of you.